Folks, we're joined by a man who's no stranger here on The Observer, Oropouche West MP and UNC Shadow Minister of Finance, Mr. Dave Tancoo. Pleasant good evening to you, Mr. Tancoo.
Pleasant evening to you, Mikee K, and to your listening audience.
Yes, folks, if he sounds a bit tired, he has been, of course, in Parliament dealing with the people's business all day, and we want to thank you for that. Debating the base erosion and profit sharing bill. First of all, what does that mean, Mr. Tancoo, and why should it be something that we, the citizens, must look upon as being important?
All right, so it's called the Base Erosion and Profit Shifting Bill.
All right.
What happens is that multinational companies, energy companies and companies that have businesses in many jurisdictions, many countries, what they do on many occasions, it has been discovered, is that if you generate a profit here and the taxation is high, they create a situation whereby a subsidiary in another country with a lower tax rate invoices this company so that the money leaves. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So that if you, for example, you're creating a product here, you're creating a barrel to put oil in, you're creating a barrel. And you found that when you create the barrel, the cost of the barrel is $5 and the selling price is $10, so you have a $5 profit. If the tax here is high, they can get, the company could get another company, one of their subsidiary companies located in, say, Barbados, where the tax might be lower, to send an invoice to this country saying that they're providing technical support for $2. What that means is that $2, now they may not be supplying it. What that means then is that $2 leaves here and goes across to Barbados. It means then that they would have avoided taxation on that $2. Now, this may sound simple, but it's a massive, massive, massive tax avoidance scheme. In fact, there is an international agency, the OECD, which has estimated that $240 billion US is lost annually throughout the world by this practice. Now, what is required then is that there's a system that has to be put in place called country-to-country reporting, whereby any country, any business, any multinational company, any company with many businesses throughout the world, BP Amoco, for example, the Shells, even the Massey stores, those companies that have, the conglomerates that have businesses all over the world, are required by this legislation to provide the information to show where their income is from, where their expenditures are from, how their system is run, etc., etc. This government was supposed to have put that in place years ago. So that means that we would not have had a situation, we would have had information, so we could have prevented the loss of taxation.
Right.
2015 is when this thing was discovered. That comes after, it came after the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, thereabouts. When it was discovered, the OECD established this BEPS reporting system, this Base Erosion and Profit Shifting reporting system, to prevent tax avoidance. This government in 2017 made a promise to the European Union and to BEPS, to the European Union and OECD that they were going to implement it by 2019. 2019 came, 2020 came, 2021, 22, 23, we're in 2024 now. Now, it's bad that we would have lost international reputation, and the only reason the government is pushing it now is because this is the last opportunity for a few years before they could get onto this program, and there is a cost of failing to comply, international costs. We would have lost credit rating, we would have lost international reputation. But more than that, what it was discovered, and there was a study done by the ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. ECLAC did a study called Navigating Transfer Pricing Risk in the Gas and Oil Sector. And in that study, they estimated what it would have cost this government, this country, in losses with the absence of this legislation.
And let me ask you, Mr. Tancoo, based on what you're saying, I know where you're getting at. Is it real 18 billion? Is that 18 billion US that ECLAC came up with?
No. ECLAC came up with 2.6 billion US, which works out to 18 billion TT.
Right. Okay.
Now that's a significant figure. 18 billion TT in 1 year with one product. So, for example, an energy company exporting natural gas that company, so all natural gas, all companies, energy companies that was exporting natural gas or treating with natural gas, all that single industry, natural gas industry, that single industry, the estimate was we were losing as a government, as a country, we were losing an average of $18 billion per year. That is for one product in 2018. One product, 1 year. We also have oil. We have all these other goods and services that are exported from Trinidad, produced and exported from Trinidad and Tobago. So there are many, many, many goods. That $18 billion we are referring to here, that was discovered by ECLAC, a study done by ECLAC, $18 billion was for one product, and there are thousands of products in 1 year, and there were 9 years since this BEPS legislation was supposed to have been put in place. I averaged then only losses of taxation from natural gas about $140 billion.
$140 billion.
Since this PNM has in government.
And you see, that's the thing, Mr.
Only on natural gas. Remember, there are thousands of other products.
Yeah, but Mr. Tancoo, when you look at it, when you hear these figures being bandied about, the mere fact that this piece of legislation was languishing for quite some time, that alone makes you wonder. I think that came into the fray sometime in November of last year or something like that. It came up to be dealt with.
Yes, they only laid the bill in the parliament in November last year, and they still dilly-dally with it, and they only did that because the Global Forum, the OECD, was telling them that this is now their last chance for quite a few years. If they did not get this legislation in place, we would have been blacklisted for quite a few years. We would have been declared non-compliant, and that has international repercussions.
Yeah, but
for me, more important than the international repercussions is the fact that we have just established that one product, 1 year, $18 billion, one product over the 9-year period since this Minister of Finance has been in office, works out about $140 billion that we should have received as a country in taxation.
And that's
because
something.
The multinational countries, the multinational enterprises avoided taxation by using the base and profit share, erosion and profit share.
The thing about it, Mr. Tancoo, when you hear these figures being bandied about in this global guava season, you have the Prime Minister saying that the government's inability to implement the property tax and the establishment of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, the TTRA, could deprive Trinidad and Tobago of much needed revenue and cause it to seek help from the IMF. But I mean, this is in total contrast, because what we're hearing from you, of course, is the fact that, hey, we basically was losing out on money. We didn't have the money. We wasn't getting the money. Now you have a Prime Minister saying, listen, our main focus here is property tax and the TTRA. Otherwise, we'll be knocking on the IMF doors.
And that's the problem right there. The Minister of Finance, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, refused to pursue low-hanging fruit. They refused to pursue money that they should have gotten, $18 billion. That works out about more than 20% of the annual budget. But they refused to pursue that. And instead, now, having failed to do that, they went ahead and borrowed to cover the difference between the budget deficit. They went ahead and borrowed, so future generations are in debt. They went ahead and sold assets of the state, so future generations are in debt. They went ahead, we don't have the assets anymore. They went ahead and raided the HSF. All of those things they did not have to do. 0.002%. They told workers that they couldn't afford to give them more. But they did not, so they victimized the population by simply not accessing this. All they had to do was pass the legislation and implement it. That's it. And they would have been able to access a greater revenue stream, upwards of $18 billion. Remember, using $18 billion, but that is just one product in 1 year.
No, we lost out on quite a lot, Mr. Tancoo, because
we lost out on billions. This country has no reason to be having hospitals where you can't get medicine. They have no reason to be experiencing property tax. We have no reason to be having bad roads. We have no reasons for children not to be able to afford to get books. We have no reasons why our pensions for pensioners are so low. We have no reason to be going through the crises for job creation because of the amount of money that should have been flowing through this country to create jobs, to fix roads, to fix our infrastructure, to develop this country. It is largely because of this government's failure to pursue this simple piece of legislation.
And I mean that
6 clauses, 22 pages.
yeah, that doesn't
Six
make sense.
clauses, you know.
Doesn't make sense. The Prime Minister said failure to implement the initiatives. He said he recalls several of the initiatives that perhaps the opposition was hindering for the last 8 years. And he said initiatives such as property tax and the TTRA could lead to a situation where the country might not be able to meet its expenses. But isn't that already happening, Mr. Tancoo?
Well, it's happening now because of this government's failure to pursue people and companies who are avoiding tax. That's illegal. So even in local context, we have this government offering amnesties, tax amnesties, to facilitate people who broke the law and didn't pay tax. In this international circumstance, we are offering a situation where they have given a blight to the multinational enterprises, multinational companies, at the expense of taxpayers. Because just for the 9 years, $140 billion. Can you imagine what that could have done for the economy of Trinidad and Tobago? You know what the annual budget of this country is? It's about $60 billion. So we are talking about more than twice the amount of money that is spent every year. More than 2 times that. Thrown away because this Minister of Finance and this government simply was not interested in protecting the public purse.
And let me ask you, currently, where do we stand now? Number one, do we have money? And if we do, what are the priorities as far as dealing with the money we have? Are we just dealing with recurring expenditures? We're hearing, of course, CPEP workers not being paid on time. Some public servants are not being paid on time. Contractors are not being paid. All of these things are happening in our country at this point in time. The middle class has been wiped out. Do we have money, Mr. Tancoo? Is it just a matter of looking for money for an election campaign, or is it just a matter of just filling their pockets and not dealing with the issues that are affecting the people of this country?
All of this is examples of poor government management, all of it. The fact is that the minister keeps saying that, the economy is doing well. Things are looking brightly. Instead, what we know to be happening is the economy is shrinking. It's still small after 9 years of this government and several $100 billion of revenue. It's still smaller than it was in 2015. And I know for a fact that the government continues to borrow hundreds of millions of dollars every year in debt in future generations. The money is there, but the money is now being borrowed. So we are living on debt. The government plans to come to the parliament maybe next week, as early as next week, to increase the borrowing limits, the level at which they could borrow, by $10 billion for the 3rd time since they have been in office. What that tells you is that this government has had no positive impact on the development of our economy. They have done nothing to improve business and investor confidence. Nothing. The result has been that small and medium-sized businesses have shut down, and those are the largest entities that employ people. When you have a situation where the government does not care, we have a situation where we are in crisis and we must make decisions. Just as well, one of the reasons why the small and medium-sized enterprises are collapsing is because the big conglomerates are taking over the roles of the small and medium-sized businesses. So we find conglomerates getting into small contracts that used to be done at regional corporation levels. And because of their deep pockets, they have better options, they have better investment opportunities. They have more money to spend around, they could underbid. And one of the factors, one of the reasons for that is because this BEPS, base erosion and profit shifting, because of that, if you now have to pay less tax on the amount of money you earn, you have more money that you could put into invest. You are now going to be able to compete more efficiently with even very good small contractors. So we have a situation where the rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting bankrupt.
And in this global economic climate, that's not good. Again, the Prime Minister warned the action, and one has to look at this narrative, especially going into a general election. He warned the actions of the opposition and others to stymie efforts by government to increase public revenue could create a situation where the crapo would have his pipe and the match would have been struck to light it. So again, putting the onus and the blame on the opposition as far as direct foreign investment, all of this. And then to say that as the Prime Minister, one of the commitments he made to this country was to keep Trinidad and Tobago away from the IMF. Is he setting us up for something?
I think he is, because while he and his government have closed their eyes to over $140 billion of potential revenue. They've closed their eyes to that. He is now saying that the opposition is blocking the government from generating increased revenue. That is absolutely not true. Absolutely. In fact, what is clear with regards to this specific piece of legislation is that the government has been complicit in denying the taxpayers billions of dollars over the years. And it doesn't surprise me that the Prime Minister, when the day before we debated this in the lower house, he took in front. But pay attention to his language. His language is things are not good, things are in fact very bad. He blames the opposition again. He likes people to forget that they have been in government for the last 9 years. He likes people to forget that. But he blames the opposition and then turns around and threatens again that we might be going to the IMF.
Yeah,
we are going to increase borrowing limits, but he's threatening we might be going to the IMF. That's a scare tactic.
Yeah.
That's a scare tactic, because if you had $140 billion at your disposal and you didn't take it, and now you're saying we had to go to the IMF for structural adjustment, I hope people understand what that means. Structural adjustment are some of the harshest policies that can be implemented in a country. It comes with removing and reducing substantially social benefits, grants, and social support. There are strings with regards to pensions, etc. It is a real hard times situation. I think the Prime Minister is waving that to frighten people. And then he will come up and see, we just borrowed $10 billion, but forget that. We forget the $140 billion that we didn't take. We are looking fairly well because they want to get money to start a pump for election. That's what this is, It's a distraction. So because every time people hear IMF, we think bad. But the government has money. It has access to money. And today proved it. Today proved it. The documentation proved that the government has access to money. They chose not to pursue it. In fact, they chose to penalize citizens. Elections have consequences, Mikey.
Yeah,
citizens are paying twice. They're paying in hardship, and they're paying in what we call money lost to corruption, to mismanagement.
You're right about that, because Dr. Earl is also talking about the fact that the most vulnerable in our society will not be protected because of the reduction of several subsidies used to protect these very same people. And a lot is going on. I want you to keep an eye on customs as well, because the Custom Act says that a full custom officer is one, of course, that has to be in uniform, going about their business. But many of these seniors who retired that they call back, I don't know if you're aware, but they have not renewed their contracts. They have not renewed their contracts, and the TTRA is expected to come on stream very soon, according to the finance minister. So that in itself could be a breach. And these are questions that we need to ask.
Now, there's something called the ease of doing business. One of the factors that should encourage people to come to Trinidad and Tobago and to invest is the stability of our revenue agencies and the stability of customs and excise, because and our tax regime. The government has failed on all of those things. When you start getting difficulties to get your raw materials imported into Trinidad and Tobago because customs has a crisis, they're not paying the officers, including the retirees that they've brought in. When you have a situation where businesses cannot be confident that when they're importing raw material, they'll get it. We already have businesses having grave problems to get foreign exchange. We already have businesses being petrified to invest in this country because of the crime levels. What do you think is going to happen? Businesses will not come here. So they're crashing these small businesses. They are creating a situation where nobody wants to invest in Trinidad and Tobago because you don't know if you'll get your raw material, or even when you get your raw material and you sell your product, whether you'll be able to export your profits, or whether you'll get foreign exchange. Nobody wants to invest. We are in a desperate spiral downhill. And the government's only solution to that, instead of treating with generating foreign exchange, instead of treating with generating revenue, the only way that this minister in particular has seen to create revenue is to tax.
Yeah.
To blame, and then tax some more.
Yeah, and what's also embarrassing is that, rushing now to get this passed through as far as BEPS, when you have countries like Grenada, St. Lucia, and Barbados who have dealt with their situation, and we are way behind. I mean, it
Boy,
makes you
I
wonder.
identified some small countries today: Grenada, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent. These are small island states that have already had this legislation in place. And and Guyana. That is why investments are leaving Trinidad and Tobago and going elsewhere.
Yeah.
That is why, because there are more attractive investment climates elsewhere.
And
This government simply does not know or does not care. Either is bad.
yeah, real
How this
unfortunate.
country is run. They don't care. It is about a quick dollar for their friend, family, and finances. They don't care about anything else.
And
There's
it's
no
sad.
structure in developing this country. There's no concern for the people of this country. Imagine $140 billion if you ignore, but you want to run down property tax to get $400 million. You're punishing the poor in this country. You cannot elevate, somebody else said it, I think it was Kennedy, said you cannot pull up a country by taxation. You cannot tax a country to prosperity because you are taxing the very people who you want to save their money to invest and to spend. Right now, we have probably one of the worst situations with regards to price increases where that 4% that they like to boast about, the 4% increase has been wiped out because we have had more than 100% increase in prices of food, only, and other prices in that same period. So even if you get an increase in salary, the amount of things you could have buy with it before you got the increase, after all of these years, that amount has dropped.
Yeah.
So if you had the same income last year to this year, you are able to purchase less.
And it makes you wonder, where do we go from here? I want to thank you so much, Mr. Tancoo, for taking time out. I know you stepped out of the chamber to link with us. Thank you so much indeed. Keep up the good work, and we're going to be keeping an eye on these issues as they develop.
Always a pleasure, Mikey. Always a pleasure. The solution is obvious. Elections have consequences. We have seen what this government did. It's time for us to do what we can do.
I agree with you. Thank you so much again.